In today's class, we are going to discuss the cloud deployment models and the concept of virtualization in cloud computing. So let us begin with cloud deployment model first. So basically, there are three types of cloud deployment models, and these are called as public cloud, private cloud, community cloud, and hybrid cloud. I guess the slides are visible to all of you, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So these are the four types of cloud deployment models. Now we are going to see each one of them one by one. So first, if you talk about the private cloud, then in this particular type, the cloud infrastructure is provisioned for exclusive use by a single organization or company, and it may comprises of multiple customers. Okay, so the point over here is the cloud infrastructure is going to be provisioned for exclusive use by a single organization. Means only a single organization or single enterprises is going to use this particular cloud infrastructure. It is not like that the cloud infrastructure is going to be lended by or going to be used by multiple organizations at a time. So in this type, only one organization is going to make the use of the provided cloud infrastructure. However, the consumer may be multiple. Okay. For example, if one cloud has been developed in NIT Raipur, then all the students of NIT Raipur can make the use of it. So the consumers have become multiple in that case, but the cloud infrastructure has been provisioned to NIT Raipur only. Okay, not some other colleges. And if you talk about the management, then it can be owned, managed, and operated by the organization, a third party, or the combination of them. Okay, so if some organizations have thought of having one private cloud, so that organization can manage that private cloud, or they can hire some third party to manage that particular cloud. Just hold on for a while. Yeah, sorry for the disturbance, students. Uh, yeah. So the point which one has to note over here is that this particular type of uh, cloud can be owned, can be managed, and can be operated by the organization that has taken the private cloud, or they can ask any third party to manage that cloud. So that sort of situation come into picture when they have not got the expertise to manage that particular type of cloud, or maybe they can have the combination of them. So in this case, the first of the some of the things will be managed by the organization itself, and some other technical things are going to be managed by the third party. And this type of cloud may exist on or off premises. So all the cloud infrastructure can be there inside the organization, or they can be there somewhere else. Fine. Now the second cloud deployment model is a public cloud. And this particular type of cloud is generally made or is generally provisioned for the use by the general public. And these are generally being owned, managed, and operated by the business, in general academic, or some government organizations, or it may be the combination of them. So these are the users which can have, or these are the persons which can manage, which can have, or which can operate this type of cloud. And it exists on the premises of the cloud provider. So over here we can see that this is the compulsion, that if you talk about the public cloud, then the cloud provider has to be there in the premises only. Okay. Then the hybrid cloud. So this type of cloud infrastructure is generally composition of two or more distinct cloud infrastructure, and these two distinct cloud infrastructure may be your private, community, or public, and that remain unique entity but are bound together by standardized or proprietary technology that enables data and application portability. So it may be possible that we may have a combination of a public cloud and a private cloud. So where some of the cloud infrastructure has been kept public and some of the cloud infrastructure has been made available for the public. So if that sort of combination is there, then we can treat as a hybrid cloud. But the point which has to be noted over here is that has to be seen as a unique entity. It is not like that one is dealing with two separate clouds. So one is going to interact with one cloud only, and that one cloud can be the combination of any cloud deployment model. So it may be private, it may be public, it may be private. Okay, so we are going to see one more cloud deployment model. So that type as well can be there. Fine. And how exactly these things are going to be managed? Of course, with the help of some standardized or proprietary technology. Okay. And cloud bursting for load balancing between the cloud is one of the example for hybrid cloud, where one cloud provider is falling short of the cloud infrastructure. So in that case, it may take the help of another cloud provider. So they both altogether can manage the load of the consumers. So this is the typical example of hybrid cloud. Then there comes the community cloud. So this one is the very interesting formulation of the deployment models of cloud. And in this particular type, the cloud infrastructure is provisioned for exclusive use by a specific community of consumer from organizations that have shared concern. And this shared concern may be mission, security requirements, policy, and the compliance consideration. For example, let us say we have got a few number of startups, and for all those startups, the common concern is to have some IT infrastructure in the beginning. Okay, so that IT infrastructure may include, let us say, 10 number of workstation, that much of some amount of storage, some amount of computation. So we are assuming that initially they are falling short of some capital. So what they can do, they can together buy one cloud infrastructure together. Okay, so they can be two organizations, organization A and organization B. So what they have done, they have borrowed some cloud infrastructure as per their common interest together, and that way what they are doing, they are reducing their cost, because if they will buy this infrastructure separately, then it is going to cost them more. So if they have purchased the cloud infrastructure in a bulk, then the cloud provider may provide some discount onto them. Okay, so it will cost them less. And how they can divide this cloud infrastructure? For example, this particular company wants to use or is in the need of use of this infrastructure, let us say in the morning only, let us say from 9 to 6, and this particular company is in the need of using this infrastructure in the night only, let us say from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. So that way they can make the use of this particular cloud infrastructure at the same time. So over here their mission is common, that they need to offload their computation, right? So at the same time, they may have that whatever data we are putting over there, that has to be secure. So one common security infrastructure can be borrowed from any cloud provider. So this way, the companies are cutting their cost, and this particular cloud deployment model has become very popular nowadays in number of companies. And if we talk about the management, then this type of cloud can be owned, managed, and operated by one or more organizations in the community. And it can also be managed by a third party or some combination of them. Fine. And if we talk about its existence, then it may exist on or off premises. Fine. So these are the some of the points regarding the community cloud. So I hope all the four types of cloud deployment models are clear to all of you. And this is the pictorial representation of all the four cloud deployment models. So as discussed, the private cloud is going to be managed by a single organization only, and the public cloud can be made available to the general public, and it has to be there on premises only. And in case of community cloud, this can be availed by a number of companies having the shared interest or the common interest. And the hybrid cloud can be a combination of any one of them. Okay, so any cloud can come together, can form a single entity, and then that will be treated as a hybrid cloud. Any problem till now, students? Any problem?
No, sir.
Just hold. Okay, so I hope all of you have got the understanding of all these four type of cloud deployment models. Now we are going to begin the another topic, which is virtualization in cloud computing. So let us see what exactly virtualization is. So in virtualization, we'll talk about virtual workspaces, and these virtual workspaces can be an abstraction of an execution environment, and this environment can be made dynamically available to the authorized client by well-defined protocols. And these virtual workspaces may include resources quota, for example, your CPUs, memories, and other things. And if you talk about the virtual spaces, then a thing like software configuration can also be there. So in this case, we may configure the operating system, we may configure the number of services. So these are the things which are going to be there the moment we talk about any virtual workspaces. Okay, so an abstraction of execution environment can be made available, resource quotas can be made available, and software configuration can be made available. So this is how the virtual stack in virtualization looks like. So at the bottom we've got the hardware, then we've got a special purpose software named as hypervisor, and on the top of that hypervisor, number of operating systems along with number of applications can sit separately as an individual entity. So implement on the virtual machine. So we can have abstraction of physical host machine. In this case, hypervisor intercepts and emulates instructions from VM and allows management of VM. And the examples of this can be VMware, Zen, etc. So as we can see that whatever host machines we have got, we call it as a physical host machine or the raw infrastructure. So this particular raw infrastructure is going to be abstracted. Okay, so this hypervisor is going to abstract this raw infrastructure. So thereafter, this hypervisor is going to intercept and emulates the instruction from VMs. So these are the VMs. This particular entity is a VM. So whatever instruction is going to be sent to this hardware, all those instructions are going to be sent by this hypervisor. So this VM is not going to aware that it is sending the instruction to the real hardware. But see, it will get the impression that it is sending the instruction to the real hardware. So rather, the instruction will first pass to the hypervisor, and then hypervisor will pass on those instructions to the real hardware. Okay, so we will see all these things into detail. So we call this process emulation. Okay. So it does provide infrastructure and API support. So plugins to hardware and support structures are also going to be there. So this is a typical diagram of your virtualization. So as discussed in the last diagram, so at the bottom we are going to have the raw hardware, and on the top of that raw hardware we are going to have a special purpose software called as a virtual machine monitor, VMM, or also called as hypervisor. And the example of this hypervisor can be Zen, VMware, UML, Denali, or many more. So these are some of the examples of hypervisors. So the hypervisor is going to sit on the top of the raw infrastructure, raw hardware, and then hypervisor is going to create number of virtual machines. So as we can see, these individual virtual machines can have their own operating system, right? So as we can see, all the three operating systems are different. So they can have their own operating system, they can have their own software configuration, and on the top of it, they can have different apps. Okay, so it is like a total independent machine, right? Where each and everything is being separated. So this is the machine stack. So at the bottom, we are going to have the hardware, then operating system, then the libraries, and then the application. So the primary approaches to the virtualization has to be either the platform is going to virtualize or the resources are going to be virtualized. So in case of platform, the example can be the server, and in case of resources, the example can be storage or the network. Okay. So overall, the motto over here is to make the efficient use of physical server. So we might be observing that the moment we run any application on a typical laptop or desktop, so if you see the performance of your laptop or the desktop, then you can observe that most of the time, most of the resources are not being utilized, right? So with the help of this virtualization, what one can do, one can create multiple virtual machines and then can exploit the full usage of the available hardware. So that is the primary use of or primary motto of virtualization. So a particular server or any infrastructure can be utilized efficiently with the help of the virtualization. Okay. And of course, several applications at the same time on a single physical server by hosting each of them inside their own virtual machine. So number of things can be run on the top of a single hardware by virtualizing it. So if you talk about the architecture of hypervisor or the placement of hypervisor, then this is how it looks like. So as discussed, so at the bottom we are going to have system hardware. So if we talk about system hardware, then it can be the CPUs, it can be the memory, it can be the network interface card, NIC, and the memory storage, right? So these are the typical system hardware. And on the top of that hardware, we do have the hypervisor. And then this hypervisor can create different virtual machine. Okay, so number of virtual machines can be created as per the capacity of system hardware, and each virtual machines can have their own operating system and number of applications. Fine. Now this is a more close look of a typical system. So again, we can have the hardware like CPU, memory disk, RAMs and all, then network interface cards and all. And on the top of that hardware, we have operating system. And then on the top of the operating system, we have got number of software applications, right? So in a typical system, only one operating system can be run at a time within a server. So it leads to the underutilization of resources. So with this, we have inflexible and costly infrastructure, because most of the time, most of the resources are not going to be used, right? And in this case, the hardware changes require manual effort and access to the physical servers. So all those things are going to be there in a typical system. And if you talk about a virtualized system, then this is how it is going to look. So again, at the bottom, we have got the typical hardware, and on the top of that we can see the hypervisor, and these are the individual virtual machines. So this is one VM and this is another VM. Okay, so as we can see now, this hardware has been emulated to each and every VM. So this VM will think like that it has got the access to all the hardware, and at the same time this VM will also think that it has also got the access to all the hardware resources. And by having this access to all these resources, all they are going to manage their working. Okay, so they are going to have the OS, then the uh, number of applications and all those things. So they will get the impression that they have got the full access to the hardware. Fine. Then there are certain types of virtualization. The first one is full virtualization, and the other one is para-virtualization. In full virtualization, it enables hypervisor to run an unmodified guest operating system. And the guest operating system in this case is not going to aware that it is being virtualized. So this is the important point which one has to remember, that in full virtualization, the guest operating system is not aware that it is being virtualized. So this is the guest operating system. So this operating system will not never know that it is being virtualized. Means the real access to the hardware is not being given. Rather, the hypervisor is emulating the access to it. Okay. So if this is there, then we can say that it is full virtualization, where the host operating system is not aware that it is being virtualized. For example, VMware uses a combination of direct execution and binary translation techniques to achieve full virtualization of server systems. So these are the techniques which is generally being used in order to make sure that the things are being fully virtualized. Fine. Now there comes the second type of virtualization, which is para-virtualization. In this particular type, it involves explicitly modifying guest operating system. So this is the para-virtualized guest operating system, and they know that it is being virtualized. So it is going to make the necessary changes so that it it have the near real performance to the hardware. So the moment it comes to know that it is being virtualized, so it can make the necessary changes so that the near native performance can be achieved. So it will help out. It will make, or it will make the use of the necessary driver so that the near metal performance or near native performance can be achieved. So example of this type can be SUSE Linux Enterprise Server. So by having the para-virtualization, one can improve the performance and it can also lower the overhead. And the example of para-virtualization can be Zen because it supports both side of hardware assisted virtualization and para-virtualization. Okay, so the point which one has to remember over here is that in this case the guest operating system does know that it is being virtualized and hence it can make the necessary changes to improve the performance of the system. Then hypervisors can also be categorized into two categories. The first one can be the bare metal hypervisor and the second one can be the type 2 hypervisor. So these are the two types of hypervisor, type 1, type 2. So in other way, they are also being called as a native or bare metal or hosted hypervisor. So in the first type, as we can see, the hypervisor is directly sitting on the top of the hardware. And then on the top of hypervisor, we can have the guest operating system. And in the second type, we have hardware. Then on the top of hardware, we have got operating system. And in this case, hypervisor is sitting on the top of the operating system, or you can say is being installed on the top of the operating system. And then on the type of this hypervisor, we can have another type of operating system. So if this sort of arrangement is there, then we can say that this is an example of type 2 hypervisor. And in this case, we can say that this is the example of type 1 hypervisor or bare metal hypervisor. Okay. For example, you might have installed the VMware in your systems, right? So if you install the VMware in your system and if you install some operating system in that VMware, then that particular setup is an example of type 2 hypervisor, because at the bottom you got your hardware, then you got your typical operating system, and then on the top of that operating system you have installed the VMware, right? And in that VMware, you might have installed some Windows 10 or some Windows operating system or some Linux operating system, right? So that arrangement is nothing but is an example of type 2 hypervisor. Fine. Am I clear, students?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Now, this is the one way of looking about bare metal approach. So as you can see, at the bottom we have got a typical hardware, and then on the top of that hardware we have got some kernel drivers, and this kernel driver, on the top of this kernel driver, we are going to put or we are going to install the hypervisors, and then this hypervisor can be used to create number of virtual machines. So this is a typical element of a bare metal approach or bare metal hypervisor. So this is also called as the type 1 hypervisor, and it directly runs on the system hardware, and it may require hardware assisted virtualization technology support by the CPU. Apart from that, it may have limited set of hardware drivers provided by the hypervisor vendor, and the example of this can be Zen, VMware, and VMware ESXi. So we'll see in detail exactly. And this is the other type of hypervisor. It is also called as a hosted approach, right? And this one is also called as a type 2 hypervisor. So again, we are going to have some hardware, and then first we are going to have the host operating system in this case, and then on the top of this host operating system we are going to have the hypervisor, and then this hypervisor can be used to create number of virtual machines, and in parallel to this hypervisor we can have some other applications. So this is the typical arrangement which we generally have in our VMware. So if we install VMware in a laptop or desktop, then this is the type of arrangement which we are going to have. So the examples can be the virtual box. Okay. And this is the example of one of the hypervisor named as Zen. So in this example, as we can see that again the hardware is there, and then we have a hypervisor, Zen hypervisor, And in this case, we have a special provision of domain zero guess. So as we can see, it can directly interact with the hardware, and it can also interact with the hypervisor. So this is why we say that some special purpose drivers can also be there, some special purpose program can also be there, which can directly interact with the hardware or the hypervisor. So basically their job is to make sure the overall management smoothly. So if we talk about this particular domain zero guess, then this is typically a Linux or Unix variant, and it can directly talk to the system hardware. Okay. So for example, if this hypervisor is not there, then in the first place, this particular type of arrangement can directly talk to the hardware. So a console will be there, and that console can be used to interact with the hardware. Okay. So it allocates and maps hardware resources from the other guest domain. Okay. So this is the typical example of Zen, right? So this is a bare metal hardware, bare metal hypervisor, since it has been installed directly on the top of the hardware. Okay, and then some VMs have been created on the top of this hypervisor. This is the example of one more hypervisor named as KVM. And in this particular arrangement, as we can see, this KVM hypervisor has been installed directly on the top of the Linux kernel. And this Linux kernel is going to have two things. First one is Linux application, and the other one is KVM management console. So this KVM management console is going to take care of all the VMs. Okay, so how many VMs it is going to create and how those VMs are going to be created. So all those things is going to be managed by this KVM management console. And as far as the interaction with the real hardware is concerned, then it is going to be taken care by some Linux applications, which are going to be directly installed on the top of Linux kernel. Okay, so more or less this is the same sort of arrangement. Rather, the things are going to be done on the top of Linux kernel this time. Okay, so again, this is example of full virtualization. Now we have come back again to the same question, that what is virtualization. So I hope the things are pretty much clear to all of you. So if you try to put all that concept into words, then we can say that the virtualization is a technique or the technology that separates functions from hardware while cloud rely on that display. So I'll clarify what exactly we mean by this particular statement. So it is very much confused. It is very much easy to confuse between these two terms. So we'll see how these two things are different from each other. I'm talking about the virtualization and cloud computing. Okay, because both the things are not same. These are different things. Virtualization is different, and cloud computing is different. So the easiest way to describe the difference is from a purely infrastructure as a service. So we are going to see. Yeah. So software called a hypervisor sits on the top of physical hardware and abstract the machine's resources. So we have seen that how exactly the hypervisors are going to be placed and how they are abstracting the machine's resources, right? And these resources can be raw processing power, storage, or cloud-based applications, which may contain all the runtime code and resources required to deploy it. So if the process stops here, then it's not cloud computing. Rather, we are just talking about the virtualization. So what we just talked as of now, we talked about some resources, right? And then we talked about having a special purpose software named as hypervisor, which is sitting on the top of that hardware. Then we are talking about making use of some CPUs or some memories and some other things which are going to be or which are being utilized. So if all those things are there only, that means we are talking about virtualization only. We are not talking about the cloud computing. So let us see how generally we create cloud computing technology out of virtualization. So virtual resources needs to be allocated into virtualized pool before they are being called as cloud. So whatever resources about which we are talking about, first we need to allocate them into some centralized pool where they can be made available to the public. Okay, the first point. And then those clouds need to be orchestrated by the management and automation software before it's being considered as a cloud computing. Okay, so whatever resources are there, they have to be orchestrated by the management and automation software. So some sort of management has to be there, some sort of automation has to be there. Only then we can term it as a cloud computing. So we will see then how what exactly we mean by the management and automation. Apart from this, cloud deliver the added benefits of self-service access, automated infrastructure scaling, and dynamic resource pools, which most clearly distinguish it from traditional virtualization. Okay, so in short, if you are talking about virtualization, that means yeah, if you are talking about virtualization, that means we are only talking about some hardware, and then we may have some hypervisor on the top of that hardware, and then it can create some virtual machines out of it. And then what cloud additionally add into this particular element is it makes sure that some sort of centralized pool has been made, some software, some sort of automation, some sort of management has been there. So virtualization will create number of VMs. Now how those number of VMs are going to be managed, how those number of VMs are going to be automated. For example, if user have demanded that I need to have, let us say, 1 TB of memory and let us say 100 number of computing cores, right? So how that particular demand is going to be served. So once special purpose sort of automation is required over there. So how the load balancing is going to be done, right? How the dynamic resource pooling has to be done. So all those automation is going to be there. So if that automation is going to be there, that means now we have talked about the cloud computing, or now the cloud will come into picture. The moment we talk about provisioning of these VMs, the moment we talk about the management of these VMs or the automation of these VMs or the scaling of these VMs as per the requirement, then that means now we are talking about the cloud computing. Okay, so you have scaled up a level from the virtualization. Am I clear, students? Students, am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So once again, if we talk about the virtualization technology, then it allows you to create multiple simulated environments called as VMs or dedicated resources from a single physical hardware system, right? Then the software called a hypervisor connects directly to the hardware, and it allows you to split one system into number of separate, distinct, and secure environments called as VMs. And these VMs are generally rely on the hypervisor's ability to separate the machine's resources from the hardware and distribute them appropriately. So the overall working of these VMs are going to rely totally upon the ability of hypervisor. Okay, so how that hypervisor is going to manage the VMs. Now, if we talk about the benefits of virtualization, then of course it is going to offer more flexible and efficient allocation of resources, right? And it is going to enhance the development productivity. It can also lead to the lower cost of IT infrastructure. It can also provide remote access and rapid scalability, high availability and disaster recovery. For example, if number of VMs are there and in case some of the VM had got crashed, then the other VMs can be made available, right, to the user, so that the resources can be made available all the time to the user, and that way some disaster recovery can also be made possible. Apart from that, paper use of the IT infrastructure on demand, right? So this will also be enabled by the virtualization, and it also enables running multiple operating system, right? So for example, if we as a user need to run multiple operating system, then it can be made possible by installing them on different VMs on a single system. So those things are the benefits of virtualization. And this is a Venn diagram of cloud computing and virtualization. So these are the specific things regarding cloud, and these are the specific things regarding virtualization. And these are the common things in between these two. So what is the common? That we have to have the infrastructure in hand, right? And then the abstraction of hardware from user interface has to be there. So end user is not going to worry about how that infrastructure at the backend is going to be managed, right? So the abstraction of hardware is going to be there with the help of user interface. So if we talk about virtualization, then some automated management is possible with some add-ons, right? Virtual machines in this case are not inherently more secure than in-house hardware. So whatever VMs we are going to create, so they are going to have the same amount of security which we have in a generally typical in-house systems. So it has licensing model tied to the hardware. So IT must provision the resources. Apart from that, the manual deployment and detection has to be there. So it can have generally it have the centralized control, and it is made for the IT. And if we talk about the cloud, then most of the time we talk about self-service. So over here we can also deploy, we can build and deploy. Rather, we can just make available software to the end user, right? So some PaaS, SaaS is going to be there. So these concepts are not going to be there in virtualization. Only infrastructure as a service is going to be there. Then we can have the automated management of things in cloud. Then we can have on-demand computing or the empowerment. So the moment whenever any user demand for anything, then that is going to be provided to the user with the help of the internet. And then it may have, or it is going to have the distributed control, okay? And it is generally made for the end user, and it offers great amount of scalability, which is not true in virtualization, in a typical virtualization. So these are the differences between cloud and virtualization, and this is the common thing which we have in cloud and virtualization. So if these things are there along with this, then we can say that we are talking about the cloud computing. And in a single word, if I would like to define, if I would like to connect the cloud computing and the virtualization, then I can say that the virtualization is the enabling technique of cloud computing. Virtualization is not a cloud computing, rather it is enabling technique of cloud computing. Okay, so you must have to remember this particular point. So this is another way of looking the differences between cloud computing and virtualization. So in cloud we talk about automated management, and in virtualization we talk about effective server utilization, right? And cloud are very much scalable, and over here the server maintenance is easy. In cloud we have self-servicing, and in virtualization the physical infrastructure can be separated by making use of VM, right? In the cloud we generally follows pay as you go, and over here the goal is to save the infrastructure cost. So they are interdependent but not interchangeable. Okay. So I hope the differences between the cloud computing and the virtualization is clear, because in cloud computing these two terms are oftenly very much confused. Okay, so people do confuse with these both the terminologies. So you must have to be very clear about this too. Then if we talk about the types of virtualization, then the virtualization can be divided into three categories: server virtualization, desktop or client virtualization, and storage virtualization. So as the name itself suggests, we have already discussed the full virtualization, para virtualization, and hardware assisted virtualization, right? Now, if you talk about the desktop virtualization, then you might have worked upon this one, remote level virtualization, right? Where your whole desktop is being virtualized. And the example of being the remote desktop application, if you use someday, and if you have used any desk, then it is nothing but the example of the remote level virtualization, where the actual infrastructure is sitting somewhere else and you are using it with some other machine. Okay, then the local level virtualization, it is nothing but the uh, where the operating systems and all those things have been installed at some other place, and you are making the access to that operating system from some other place. So this is going to be the example of local level virtualization. For example, it at a typical server, you might have installed two or three types of operating system. Then it may possible that you might be in the need of using all those operating system one by one for some specific uses, right? So that sort of arrangement is also possible, and that arrangement is called as a local level virtualization. In application level virtualization, we talk about the applications being virtualized. Okay, so some specific softwares are going to be there, and the softwares are going to be installed at some servers, and a user can make the use of those software. So if that sort of arrangement is there, then we call it as a application level virtualization. Okay, and the things can also be talked specifically regarding storage. So that can be divided into three categories: direct attached storage, storage area network, and network attached storage. Okay, in direct attached storage, some specific storage disk can be virtualized. Okay, in storage area network, some storage disk can be uh, networked, and then they together can be virtualized. Okay, in case of network attached storage, so some storage can form a network, and that network altogether can be virtualized. Okay, for example, in a LAN sort of arrangement, so multiple, we can have multiple storage, and if that storage is network, then that arrangement altogether as a single unit can be virtualized. So that will be called as a network attached storage. Okay, so I hope these virtualization types are pretty much clear to you, and it can also be viewed in some other aspect like server virtualization, which we already talked about, network virtualization, which we already talked about, storage, we already talked about, desktop, which we have already talked about, application, which we have discussed already. So this is another way of looking the types of virtualization. So I hope the things are clear to all of you. If you got any doubt, then you can ask me. Any doubt, any problem? Students, any problem?
No, sir.
Okay. So I'll stop the class here, and